Hello and welcome to the Sanctuary, a safe space to speak from the heart. I'm your host, Israel, and my guest today is an actor, model, activist, all round awesome human being, and my friend, Adeb Arianson. Thanks for coming to the Sanctuary today.
Thank you so much. Thanks for having me. And I'm glad to be here and have a great podcast with you.
Yeah, no, I've been dying to do this ever since like I read your LinkedIn and just all the awesome things you did. So I guess like acting, modeling, activism, which one came first?
Oh, good question. Thank you. It came all together actually. My acting, activism, and modeling kind of tied together from the start. But I would say, to be honest, acting came first because I was very young kid in Afghanistan, country of Asians, I would say, and I would say around 9 years old that I was watching, let's say, Western movies or Hollywood and Netflix and stuff like that, or not maybe Netflix, but Hollywood movies, and every time that I was watching it, I was having a butterfly feeling in my stomach. I was really excited. I was like, wow, I love that. I want to be there. I want to be in the TV. I want to play that role. You know what I mean? And we were like as a kid, we were just like kind of delusioning, imagining ourselves playing that same role, like as they, for example, I am this character in this movie, or I am this character in that movie. And it was really impossible. It was just like impossible dream. So it started first as a kid, as a very young kid. Then later on, I would say activism kicked in because I was around 16 years old that like due to situation, activism was a necessary thing in my life. I had to stand up for myself first. I didn't have lots of option. It was either I'm gonna become an activist and I'm gonna stand and take the risk and stand for myself and I'm gonna raise my voice, or I'm gonna let go of my dreams and everything that I have, my values, my dreams, my existence. So I made the hard decision and I didn't give up, and I had to become an activist and advocate for myself. And then it went further and I had to advocate for others. And then like I joined organizations and government and groups and youth councils and more that I have here.
Wow. And the modeling and the acting
Yes.
were about the same
So
time.
yeah, when I was like really passionate about acting at a very young age, I was never thinking that I would be able like to go too far. I'm still in the journey, I'm nowhere. But I'm glad from the journey that I have been through. I'm glad where I am. Uh, but hopefully I'm gonna make it. So I'm modeling because when you start acting in Afghanistan or like the countries that I work in, it includes Afghanistan, Uzbekistan, Tajikistan, and Georgia. So most of the agencies, when you join as an actor, they do also do modeling stuff. So when I first started like joining an agency from high school, during high school time, I think I was 15. That was the first time that I officially like I was doing just like kind of school theater and stuff like that. And from there I joined like agencies. And when I joined agencies, beside acting, there was also modeling opportunity. And they told me that since you're here, since you're doing, let's do that too. So I loved it when I started doing modeling. Actually, modeling is a good advertisement for acting. That's
Mhm.
how I would like to put it. Because when you're modeling, you're actually advertising for your for your acting too, because it's like all visual and performing arts type of thing.
Mm, mm. So, you said you had to stand up for yourself. What was the key moment? What was the thing that happened that you had to stand up for
No,
when it
that
comes to
that's
your activism?
that's very good question, an emotional question. But no, that's a really good question. So I actually think that's a great question. Um, it kicked in when as I mentioned, like I think life is very important. It's a gift. But when you're living your life not being yourself and being the person that people wants you to be very strongly, being oppressed, it's really not easy. It's
Mm,
really not easy. I think for me, the reason that I like started like becoming activist and stand up for myself, that I think it's different for people, but for me, if I don't have my freedom, if I'm not free to be who I am, and I'm not being given a chance to raise my voice, life doesn't mean anything to me.
Right.
It's not a life if I'm living somebody else's idea of me. So that's where it started. I was interested into other things. So let's say as a orphan queer kid in Afghanistan, situation is not easy. You can't be queer first of all, right? There's no rights for queer people. There's no basic human rights as a even queer person. So you would be oppressed. You would be society, people like there would be lots of problems. So you have two choices. You would give up on yourself, you would forget who you are, you would oppress yourself and live a fake life under threats and danger, or you stand up and make it better. So I think if I didn't have any other options because I think I'm a person that I am stubborn and freedom and uh, being who I am myself and uh, having the right to share my voice and stand up for myself and be free, just be free, is really important for me. And I
Right.
was not being given that option. And also, I was a youth I was passionate about social changes and so many things. Unfortunately, in Afghanistan, you might have seen some videos. Uh, I wouldn't say we, but it's a traditional country, and due to the governance and problems and conflicts, there's not lots of opportunities given to the youth. There's no trust in youth. There's no like they wouldn't let a youth to speak and share their ideas. They don't trust youth. And even if they do, they usually are expected to just follow as they're told. That's it. And that's not a good thing. So yeah, that was also challenging because I was trying to kind of get somewhere and raise my voice, and wherever I was going was just like, oh, you're too young. Like nobody cares who like a 15 years old says, you know. And I believe that this is the wrongest idea. So yes, all of these kind of came together, and I was like, I was panicking, you know, I was feeling that uh, if it's like this, I don't want to live because it
Wow.
doesn't make sense for me. If you're here but you're not living the way you are, like it's not your life anymore, right? If you're living
Mm-hmm.
someone else's, like if you're not who you are, it's not your life. So I
Mm-hmm.
was like, no, like it's dangerous. It was dangerous. I have been threatened many times. I have been injured, lots of challenges, abuses, and stuff like that. And that's why I'm writing a book currently coming on, hopefully soon. It's called The Survivor. It's the journey of like lots of orphan queer kids and youth in Afghanistan and what they go through and how they survive. And it's very rare chance. And I feel myself responsible as someone who survived and make it out here to like be the voice of those people who didn't survive. So I'm writing
Mm-hmm.
that book because of that. And yeah, it's really unfortunate, but I had to step in for myself, and I'm glad I did. If I didn't, I would not be here. I would probably, I'm not even sure if I would be alive.
Wow. Wow. That's profound. Thanks for sharing that. Cause like I mean, coming from Afghanistan, I've never been. Just what has been on the news, what we're seeing on TV, and online. Just the idea of what happens to like female identifying people in that country, and now like being you and saying, oh wait, I'm queer. It's like
Yeah,
I
of
can't even
course.
imagine. I can't even imagine it.
Unfortunately, yes. And currently there's a very strong bad gender apartheid is going in Afghanistan. And I think doesn't matter who you are, we all have the kind of responsibility to stand against gender apartheid and dictatorship. And I hope the world does the same. We are all trying to do that through different movements and activities. But yes, I think I am myself, I'm a feminist and I stand for woman right, of course. That's my field. That's you know my job, what's my job? I'm working here on the same kind of track. But I think one thing that unfortunately I expect that most of our Afghan politicians that are outside and right now they're working towards like against gender apartheid and doing activism stuff, and like having they have the opportunity to share their voice worldwide through you and stuff like that. Of course, I am grateful what they're doing for women, and they're like raising voice for Afghan women. It's really important. It's really crucial. It's really important. Afghan women are one of the strongest women in the world, but also at the same time, one of the women that suffered the most in the history. However, with all that importance, I think there's not enough activists or like people who stands for these rights. They never mention about queer people, and it's a little bit. I do definitely understand that we have to focus on women's rights first, and it's really important. However, I found it that for some activists or some people who does activism and have the opportunity to share their voice worldwide, they would feel as a stigma or taboo to speak up about queer rights in Afghanistan. And in order to do that, you don't have to be queer. Nobody's gonna assume you're queer. You just need to be a human. And you have, if you believe in democracy and freedom for women, you should believe in democracy and freedom for queer people too. Democracy doesn't come just like for one person. Democracy means that you value all aspects of democracy.
Mm.
So that's the only thing. I hope more people will stand up and also talk about queer rights in Afghanistan and what's going on with queer people, because there's lots of them. There's lots of them that never been mentioned about, and nobody speaks about them, and it's really upsetting.
Wow. Yeah, I mean, it, every time I talk to you, I just end up feeling speechless. Like, I mean, what do you even say to that? But I'm curious though. So you realized, okay, I have to deal with this. I have to face it. What were some of the steps you took, like for your first thing? Because you said you worked in different organizations. What was the first one, and how's the journey been so far?
Yes. Well, the journey was really, I would say for me, it was tough journey. I went through a lot, as I mentioned. There was lots of threats and danger and abuse and so many other things throughout the journey happened that I'm still healing. But there was one thing that when I was there, it was survival mood. I am gonna do this. I am taking because I had no other option. So I took the danger and everything. The journey was that I started first when you dare to do something, the first step's gonna be the hardest, and it was. The first step I took, I had to choose between my values and myself, my existence. And first step was not like choose between my values and my existence and between me and like kind of people around like or society. It was the toughest choice. I had to choose between myself and my closest people to me, my friends, my closest family. You know what I mean? Because
Mm-hmm.
you are gonna be oppressed, first of all, if you're a queer from like your closest family member, you know? Or if you're like you have a different type of belief, religious belief, cultural belief, or values. So when I took this first step, I have been isolated from most of the family members. That they didn't want to be associated with me anymore because of the shame, let's say. So lots of my friends left me. I was like, I'm an orphan kid, so I used to live with my uncle's family for a while, but there was lots of problems came up, of course, like lots of people left me. But I'm glad when I started on my 16th, it was really tough, but I started with going to the events, first of all, knocking every door, every opportunity that I could ever have. Like if I knew that there's an opportunity for me in this room that I can say a few words, I would go there, even if it was a classroom. So I started with going like to the events, different events, like local events and stuff like that, that I knew that there's opportunity to talk about something and there would be people. And also when I joined the modeling and acting agencies and also theater groups, uh, it gives me a really good opportunity for advocacy as well, because in theater, I believe is a strong tool for advocacy. I believe in that. So when I was doing theater projects, I had the audience already. So at the end of every theater project or whatever show we were doing, I had the opportunity to say a few words and kind of share my advocacy like in those few words. You choose what to say. So I was making sure that I say something that's gonna be related to advocacy. And from there, like using every opportunity and speaking up, it was dangerous. Lots of people left me. I was isolated from society, being called Western washed, and like, you know, because of the religious reasons, like stuff like that. Anyway, but I did it. So then it was good after I have heard lots of no. I would say if someone is in this journey, don't give up. You will hear lots of no's. I have heard lots of no's in my life. But the good thing is that after every, let's say, 100 no, there would be one yes, and that would be strong. So keep going. After like lots of no's, I used the opportunities, spoke in few events, and then I met people. I met connections. So people saw me talking and knew that I'm passionate about this thing, and it was also kind of interesting. So I made connection. I got to know people from government. I got to know people who were working with United States organizations at the time that were in Afghanistan for youth empowerment and girls education. There are a few that I worked with. So these people saw me, I met them, I made connections, and I have been invited first to join our youth social council, local in Afghanistan and province. Every area does have a local councils, and it's rare for you to have one. But in our area, we had youth social council of our area. So they invited me to join them as a member, and I joined there. So I had much more better opportunity to share my voice because I joined officially. I was a member of youth social council. So I was provided with audience, with all the equipments I needed, the place, the events to speak up and share and organize things. So I started organizing more programs and events for youth advocacy and youth empowerment. And after like 6 months, I got promoted to head of culture committee for youth, which was great. Again, I had more opportunity to do my activism and advocacy. And from there, I met people from different organizations, and I joined one of the United States NGOs in Afghanistan that were working for girls education and technology and youth empowerment
Right.
at the age of, I think, but by that time I was late 17, early 18, last days of high school. So yes, I joined them. They recognized me, and they were interested. I joined them and I worked with them for youth empowerment and girls education as a youth myself, as a part of program too. So from there, then the journey took me later on to the out of the country. When I was 18, I moved out, and the situation happened. We couldn't go back, and then I went to Georgia. I immigrated here, and throughout my journey, because I already had the experience of working with social councils and government kind of and NGOs, so whichever country I moved to, I had the opportunity to again work with organizations and even at least volunteer. So I did all of that in different countries. Like again, when I moved out of the country, I kept working with organizations and working and volunteering till I came here. And the moment I arrived here, the second month, I started again working with organizations and theater groups and all of that. And so far, I'm here. So yes, I think that it is a tough thing to do, and the hardest part is that you have to choose between yourself and so much other things. You have to choose between yourself and your friends and your family and your community and your society and culture and country. But I hope it's not selfish, but I chose myself.
I don't think it's selfish. I think being true, being honest to yourself is something that as human beings we should admit. And I think coming to you on your experience and coming from the country you come from and the experience there and the persecution really, there is a part of you that, or a part of the average person that might be like, oh wait, I find out this is who I am, I'm a queer person, I'm this. There's a tendency of most people to like keep it in or hide it or shield it because they don't want to deal with what people might say, being abused, being threatened, all these things. Like, what gave you the courage at such a young age to be like, you know what, whatever comes, I'm gonna face it or figure it out.
Yeah, yeah,
But this is me. Like, what gave you that courage to admit and to
yes.
accept yourself?
Very good question. I'm gonna share this. I don't mind. You can keep it. You don't have to cut it, but I'm gonna share it. So to be honest, what gave me actual courage was pain. It was really pain. And why? Because before coming to age of like before becoming a teenage to start advocating for myself as a kid, I was abused and I went through a lot. So in a very young age, I can say like around 6 year, like as a 6 year old kid, I was abused differently. I was physically abused, I was verbally abused, and in so many different ways. And then in the age of 9 again, I was abused in childhood for being who I am. And I didn't know at that time when the people say when you're 6 year old, how can you know you're queer? I didn't know, but it was obvious why I was being bullied from my cousins that I'm being too girly or feminine. Why do I play with girls? Why do I act when I talk why do I act this way when I talk? I used to be this way since childhood, since a kid, but I didn't know what it is about. But it's like it's if someone is from that part of the world, they know that if you are being like, for example, if you even laugh a little bit loud, people will think, why are you laughing like a girl? It's very common. It's very common. So as a kid, that was the least thing, like that was the less painful thing. Like I have been always uh threatened. I have been beaten for it, that why you're being too girly, why you're feminine, why you're playing with girls, why you're doing this, why you're like. One time I was a kid, I think by mistake or something, I think I wore a lipstick or lip something, which wasn't even like a full makeup or something, and I have beaten for it. I have been beaten for it. So yes, it wasn't new. It wasn't like a kind of all of a sudden I'm teenage and I want to stand for myself. No, it was rooted from my childhood that I was abused. Uh, as I mentioned, verbally was the kind of the a kind of abuse that I experienced that was like very less painful. There was much worse. So I went through a lot as a queer kid, and queer orphan kid is different. At least if you have your family around, maybe they are not supportive still because of the culture, but still if it's like a your family thing, there would be a few emotions towards you, to be like a bit more soft. I didn't have that. So I faced any type of abuse and problem that you can think a queer kid, orphan kid can face in the, let's say, lost in this that world. So I was already there. So when I was a teenager, I was like, I have already been through this. I have been abused. I have been through everything for being who I am. And there's nothing much more, like I have already pain and it doesn't really mean anything to me. Like I have already experienced that. And it was really painful. I'm still healing from my childhood abuses that I have been through. And when I say abuse again, it's not just like verbal abuse. I have been physically abused and, let's say, even sexually abused and so many other things as a kid. So that's tough. But yes, the pain was with me. And to be honest, when I started my activism, it came from pain that I have been through this already. And there's nothing else that Nothing else means too much for me. I have already been through everything that I could be for who I am. So at least let's now take the chance to make sure for the rest I can be myself and not to go through those things. So I took the chance because there was no other options. I was like, either I'm gonna take the chance to change the future, or I have been already through everything. So there's nothing else that I was afraid. There's nothing. Some people are afraid, oh, if you're like this might happen to you. I wasn't afraid because it already happened to me as a kid. So why would I be afraid? Because it already happened to me as a kid. So let's take the chance to change the future. So
And
pain was my strongest and biggest motivator.
wow. Yeah, no, I did. Thanks for sharing that. I'm curious. And what are some of the things that you're doing for the future? Because I know most of your activism is actually for others, but what are some of the things you're actually doing for yourself?
Sure, that's great. First of all, I'm healing. And I think it's really important. It's gonna take a long time because it's not a one thing, you know, it's so many things, and I'm sure like it might be a lifetime process for me to heal. However, first of all, I am now taking time to heal. Second of all, now that I have made it here, I'm really glad where I am. Not only regarding like related to country wise, but in general in my life. I'm glad for where I am. However, there's a lot I have to do and I'm trying to do. First of all, I keep being in the track. I am continuing my activism at the moment. You probably know that I am working in gender-based violence prevention department in one of the organizations at Halifax. So that's pretty much related to my experience and knowledge working in gender-based violence and here, gender-based violence prevention. Other than that, I am leading a movement called global intergenerational democracy advocates. That is a movement advocating for voices that are being oppressed on for different reasons in different countries, as I experienced when I was there. So I want to have a platform that people can share their voice and we can share their voice. So I'm leading a movement for those values and matters. It includes, for example, people of Afghanistan, women in Afghanistan, queer people in Afghanistan, sharing voices of people in Iran and countries that are dictatorship and they're being murdered for just raising their voice. So and it's a worldwide movement. It's one of the movements we are doing at the moment. We're doing also some other campaigns as much as we can in our power. Other than that, I'm writing my book. I think that hopefully I'm working on it. You know, writing a book is a process, especially my book is activism, and it requires a kind of uh, or an organization or a person to sponsor you who's interested and invested in the story. I don't have that one yet because I haven't actually shared everything, but it's in the process. I'm making a draft. Hopefully, then I will find the support to publish that because on that book I share not only my story but through like sharing my journey I am actually being the voice of thousands of people who went through the same journey and didn't make it out.
Well,
There's a few. We all take there are hundreds of people who take the chances and danger to stand up for themselves, and not all of them were successful, or not, I wouldn't say successful, not all of them succeed to make it out. Most of them unfortunately being murdered in the process. They died, they lost their lives, or they're in bad situations. So as a person who took this process and survived, I feel responsible myself to now be the voice of those who didn't survive.
mm,
So this book teaches about kind of the unseen and untold stories, and also explains system and like different factors that plays a role that why we suffer this much and what are the factors. Like it's not a family thing only. It's family system is broken, it's cultural problem, it's tradition problem, it's religious reasons, it's society problems. So there's so much reasons, so much factors that includes that we suffered as like queer kids. So yes, I'm working on that and I'm trying my best, and hopefully I will be a good role model for people who are in their journey. I want to motivate them. If I have been in my when I was going through my journey, I wish that someone who has been in my experience, you know, I
mm,
see them success, so I will say, okay, this person made it out. I have hope because this person did it, you know. So I want to be that person for those people that they can see that say it's not impossible. You can make it. There's some that made it and you can. And that means a lot to me to be that person. And I'm not like there yet. I'm here. I'm happy with where I am, but hopefully I make it to where I want to be. Hopefully I will be a good role model for those people.
yeah. That's a lot of pressure on you on yourself, eh? That's a lot of pressure. I can't even imagine it. I know you are having your graduation today, so congrats on that.
Thank you.
I have so many more questions, so I want to invite you to my other podcast, The Blackout, where we'll actually talk in person. But I want to end out today's sanctuary episode with this question. You know, Afghanistan, you've been there, grew up there, had a lot of negative experiences, and but some of those experiences, most of it shaped who you are today. Well, I'm wondering, like, from all those things that happened growing up there, like, are there any things about the country that you miss and you love?
Yes, sure. Uh, I mean, yes, my experience has been painful. Uh, it has been a lot. However, I don't hate the country that I was born in, right? It's gonna be always a part of my identity. Excuse me. It's gonna be always a part of my identity and who I am. There's lots of things that I don't agree with the culture and system and so many things, but it's gonna be a part of me forever, and I'm gonna advocate for it. Um, there are things that I missed. One of the things that I missed that the times that I was advocating actually, like not the early childhood. My early childhood and early teenage was the time that I went through a lot. Then when I started advocating and went through the hard process, and then I was recognized. So I was actually seeing results in my work. So I was seeing that more youth are encouraged to speak up, stand up for themselves. We had a progress. We were witnessing a progress, you know? We were witnessing that the government is also paying a bit attention and giving opportunity and kind of not not maybe not fully, but a little bit. It was basically republic government, so it was better than being very strict religious.
Yeah.
So that was the time that I was like feeling more democracy were kind of trying to be settled in Afghanistan.
Mhm.
And we were seeing results, and I was really passionate and happy that, oh, things are changing. The government is supporting the freedom of people, and there are some things that are happening. And it was really exciting for me. I was really happy that I'm seeing like the results of the work that I have done, and not only me, hundreds of activists in Afghanistan and people who worked for democracy and freedom. We were seeing some results at the like end years, I would say, before the government falls. So, and we didn't know that it's gonna fall. So we were really passionately and we were really hardly working towards change. You know, we were really to be honest, I can say that I was almost like invested my whole life for that, you know? Wow, we are doing it. Things are changing. Things are getting better. Maybe not 100%, of course not. It's a long process, but we are seeing changes. We are being heard a little bit at least. So we had a little bit of freedom, maybe not full, but a tiny bit of freedom. And that was something that I was excited about, and I missed those times, to be honest. And all of a sudden, we had no idea that the government will fall and everything would go to zero.
Mm.
So that was another most painful part of my life, that we were just like, okay, we are almost there. We are doing great. We're moving forward for the future, for the change. And all of a sudden, boom, overnight, we are 1,000 years back.
Mm.
1,000 years back. All the investment, and I would say all the efforts that America, not only United States, but all the efforts that the countries put to build a democratic country there, or kind of advocate for democracy and voices of people in there for 20 years, I would say over 20 years,
Yeah.
everything went to zero. Every single thing went to zero, even worse. So it was really painful. We're like, okay, we're doing great. And overnight,
Yeah.
nope, you're back 2,000 years ago. So it was a time travel. But I do miss the time that I do miss about Afghanistan was the Republic time, Republic of Afghanistan, and that we were kind of having freedom and we were doing activism and stuff, and we were kind of feeling a little bit democracy in our country and results of our works. I do miss that time. I do miss the some of our cultural celebrations, Independence Day celebration, or I would say New Year celebration. There are things that I do miss. And as a queer person in Afghanistan, no matter like how is your journey, we're all humans. And even if you're in a war situation, love happens. Love happens at any moment if you were in World War II. You know that, right? If you have you heard like have you read the stories of like people having laugh or meeting and falling in love and during the war? So I think it's a human nature. Doesn't matter how hard and how bad the situation is, love happens. And as a queer person in Afghanistan, I also had my teenage love experience in Afghanistan during the most crisis time of my life.
Wow.
And even though it was so much like problems and crisis in my life, right? But I do have in between. I like I'm teenage, and I do obviously you will experience teenage life, no matter where you are, how hard the situation is. And I experienced my teenage life in Afghanistan. So with all the crisis and hard times, there's a little bit of spices of teenage life. It's different type of life.
Yeah.
I'm also mentioning that part in my book because it's really interesting when you are gonna fall in love in a country that's really dominated by religious reasons, and we fall in love in mosque. So that's really interesting. I'm including that story in my book to show that love
Wow.
doesn't see any boundaries.
I can't wait. I can't wait to read this book. Adib is great, and I can't wait to have you back. I just want to say thank you for all the amazing work you do. Congrats on your graduation and all your success. I really, really appreciate you, and thanks for coming to the sanctuary today.
Thank you so much. I appreciate your hosting me and having these conversations, and looking forward to see you into the next podcast.